This is Thames Television from London. Now, from ITN, the latest news with Nicholas Owen.
The news from ITN.
British Gulf commander warns Iraq may strike at any time. Saddam says no compromises on dates or territory. Gorbachev gets powers for direct rule of republics. And Desi, out on his own and back on winning form. Good evening. The commander of the British forces in the Gulf, Sir Peter de la Billiere, has told his troops to prepare for a preemptive strike by Iraq before January the 15th, the deadline for President Saddam to leave Kuwait. In another development, the US State Department has ordered all its non-essential personnel to get out of Jordan immediately.
For General Sir Peter de la Billiere, nervous days lie ahead. The commander of the British forces in the Gulf was today on a post-Christmas tour of units. He gave the strongest warning so far that President Saddam Hussein might launch a preemptive strike before the UN deadline.
If he decides that he's going down the military road, then he will try to take a military initiative, and that initiative could well happen before the 15th of January. So there's nothing sacrosanct about the 15th of January in military terms.
The British deployment is on schedule. The armour for the 4th Brigade now lined along the dockside. The armoured personnel carriers will soon be moved to the desert. Today it was confirmed by military intelligence that Iraq was still strengthening its grip on Kuwait with sophisticated defences. Out in the Gulf, HMS Brazen, which had just left this Saudi port, together with US warships, boarded an Iraqi freighter. Inspection showed it was breaking the embargo, trying to smuggle food supplies past the Allied navies. Robert Moore, ITN, Saudi Arabia.
Continuing pressure from UN-backed forces in the Gulf has brought no change of tone from Baghdad. Meeting Jordanian politicians, President Saddam remained defiant. He told his guests that any withdrawal from Kuwait must be linked to the Palestinian issue, and later stressed again that Iraq would not change its position on dates for the high-level talks proposed by President Bush. After the United Nations set its deadline of January the 15th, the Americans said talks must be before January the 3rd. Iraq suggested January the 12th. Today, Israeli sources were reporting a compromise date of January the 9th. In Tel Aviv, Israel's defense minister has told journalists he's confident his country can withstand a preemptive strike by President Saddam's forces.
He has the ability, he has missiles that have a range to reach Israel, but I think his capability of hurting Israel significantly is very limited.
Tonight, as American servicemen celebrate Christmas as best they can, the US State Department advised all non-essential embassy staff and families to leave Jordan as soon as possible. A further sign of increasing tension as the January deadline approaches.
President Gorbachev has been given the power he wanted to rule by decree, which he hopes will turn the Soviet Union round. The Soviet Parliament voted to give him direct control of the 15 republics and the country's economy. But it's still to approve his choice of vice president, Gennady Yanayev, an old-style conservative.
Mikhail Gorbachev is now, in theory at least, the most powerful ruler of his country since the Tsar was overthrown in the 1917 revolution. Parliament today completed a series of constitutional amendments which give him the right to rule by decree without any legislative checks and balances. For his part, Mr. Gorbachev named the man he wants as vice president. He's Gennady Yanayev, who, despite pledging his support for economic reform, is seen as a Communist Party conservative and further evidence of Mr. Gorbachev's move to the right. The future of Prime Minister Nikolai Ryzhkov, last seen here yesterday, is now in even greater doubt following his heart attack. He's been under intense pressure to resign. And more evidence of tension in the Baltics today. The commander of the Soviet fleet there warned that servicemen might have to use arms to defend their families against extremists. Nationalists fear that such statements are designed to justify a military crackdown. They're also afraid that despite his new powers, Mr. Gorbachev may not be able to control an army which shows signs of wanting to go its own way. Kim Ewart, ITN, Moscow.
A gas rig support vessel is drifting out of control in heavy seas off Humberside tonight. An RAF helicopter is on its way to rescue the crew of 15. tomorrow's weather could be the worst of the current stormy spell. Doctors hoping to save 8-day-old Christy Strachan have had to turn down the offer of a heart from Spain because it's too big. Another baby in Europe needs a transplant too, which means a new heart for Christy will probably have to come from Britain.
Surviving on a life support machine at Great Ormond Street Hospital in London, 8-day-old Christy is tonight still waiting for the chance to become the youngest ever heart transplant child. The UK Transplant Service turned down the offer of a heart from Spain because it was too big. Other offers came too early.
During December, we had about 4 offers of very small donors, and some of those might have been suitable for Christy. Obviously, Christy hadn't been born then.
Christy's first source for a new heart would be within the UK Transplant Services area, which includes Ireland. The second source would be the whole of Europe. But another baby, only 3 days old, needing a new heart of the same blood group, has been born within the Euro transplant area, covering the Benelux countries, Germany and Austria. The first donor heart from there will now go to this other baby. And for geographical reasons, so will any heart which becomes available in the French or Scandinavian transplant areas. Even if a suitable heart were to be found in Europe, the time it takes to bring it here might make it of no use to Christy. Now another child needs the same heart. Christy's survival depends almost entirely on one being found in Britain. Stuart Maister, ITN, Great Ormond Street Hospital.
Now, with news of another milestone for Desert Orchid and the narrowing of the gap in the Football League Championship, here's Giles Smith.
Desert Orchid is back in form and back in the record books. A fourth success in the King George VI chase saw Desi jumping superbly and ready to seize the initiative when Sabin de Loire crumpled at the 6th from home. Then there was no stopping him.
Crowd's going absolutely wild. They've got one to jump, and it's Desert Orchid. He comes to take it. He jumped it brilliantly. This was his race. Desert Orchid, what history being made. Roll to the applause. The King's in his counting house. Desert Orchid blooming. He's been here before. Desert Orchid the winner. Marvellous.
Today's soccer saw Arsenal close on Liverpool when they beat Derby 3-0, and the champions were held to a draw by Queen's Park Rangers. At Highbury, Limpar laid on Arsenal's first for Alan Smith. Keeper Seaman was the surprise provider of his second and his team's third, completely fooling the Derby defence. At Loftus Road, Liverpool went ahead in the second half through Barnes. But Rangers deservedly got the equaliser through Falco, thanks to a post and a bemused Robillard. That win by Arsenal leaves them 4 points behind Liverpool, but victories for Crystal Palace and the ever-improving Leeds push Spurs into 5th place. Cricket, David Gower helped England to a respectable start in the second test in Melbourne. They finished on 239 for 4, Larkin 64, Stewart 42 not out, Gower 73 not out. Reed got Atherton in the 4th over for a duck. And when Gooch was removed by his old tormentor Alderman without even playing a shot, England at 30 for 2 were in deep trouble. But Larkins, who's had such a miserable tour so far, was the unlikely hero, hauling England to respectability. And with Gower, despite an injured wrist, riding his luck, and still there at the end, England are still in with a real shout.
And that's all from us for the moment. ITN bulletins continue through the night, but from the Boxing Day team here, good night.
Good evening. Well, the weather simply refuses to leave us in peace this Christmas. Tomorrow will be a brighter day, but it will also be colder and, more importantly, just as windy as today. In fact, the north and west will find tomorrow even more windy, I'm afraid. Here's a wind flow chart for today. There's the low pressure over Scotland at the moment. The low itself will move away during the night, but the isobars will stay packed together just like this right through tomorrow, so some very strong winds. These are the sort of average wind speeds, up around 40 or 50 miles per hour in places. On top of that, there are gusts, of course, up to perhaps 80 miles per hour up in the north and west. The gustiness will ease off a little bit in the south tomorrow, but even there it's a very windy day. Back to tonight now in more detail. Most of the heavy rain has moved away. There are still lots of showers, mostly in the west and the northwest, I think, overnight. Some eastern parts becoming dry, but the showers in the north and west turning ever more wintry, some snow on the high ground. For tomorrow then, well, a lot of sunshine around, I think, especially in the south and the east, but quite a few showers as well, most of them in the north and the west, as you can see, and turning more and more to snow, I think, over Scotland, Northern Ireland and the high ground in northern England as well. So some blizzard conditions in those very strong winds up on the mountains. Temperatures hardly worth a mention with all that, really. A high of around 7 or 8, that's about 46, much colder than that in the far north, as you can see. Temperatures of 3, extremely strong winds, a very rough day for the north. As the Sunset Times, here's tomorrow's windy summary. Good evening.
Tomorrow on ITV, the movie premiere of My Left Foot. The Oscar-winning story of the Irish writer Christy Brown, a man who battled valiantly to overcome his crippling disability.
This is Christy Brown, my son, genius.
Daniel Day-Lewis in the movie premiere, My Left Foot, tomorrow at 9.
Now, Boxing Night at the Movies brings you Police Academy 2, their first assignment.